welcome to the Select Few Podcast Episode 1. My name is Create, aka Rip Lungs, and today I have three awesome homies, three people that are super awesome in the Lorcana community. I'm gonna go ahead and let them introduce themselves. Start off with Mr. Sky over here.
Yeah, what's up? I'm Sky. I've been playing Blue Steel since set two. Got top 16 in Chicago. I've been to three challenges so far, so I got my invite. The other two I didn't do too well. But yeah, happy to be here talking about some Blue Steel and some Lorcana. So thank you for having me.
There you go, Mr. Sky. Mr. Jonathan, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Jonathan. I'm a Sky fanboy, and I've also been to three challenges. I got three let it goes, but I made top cut once, and I've won a 5K and gone top 8 at 10K. But sadly, I've lost in top cut both the times. But yeah, that's me. I'm
You won a
bad.
5K? I didn't know that.
Yeah,
This guy's cracked,
What set was
bro.
that?
the Richmond one.
The Richmond one? Nice, bro. That's cracked. And let's finish off with Mr. BadVegas, who also came out on my channel before. Go ahead and introduce yourself again, Mr. Vegas.
Yeah, BadVegas. I've also pretty much only played Blue Steel since set two. I've only been to one challenge, but I got top 8 there, so hoping to go to the next one.
One for
Awesome.
one for Mickey's, man.
Yeah.
That's what
There
we
you
gotta
go,
do.
man. So as you can guys clearly see, we do have a select few chosen people in here. Three very skilled players, awesome people. And again, thank you guys for coming out on the first episode of this podcast. This podcast is it's pretty much just gonna be a podcast of players who I've met in the community, who I have respect for, and you guys are also involved in the community as well. And I'm pretty much this channel is known for a lot of Sapphire and Steel, so I did want the first episode to kind of be tailored a little bit towards that. And all three of you guys are significantly awesome, skilled Sapphire and Steel players, and I'm pretty sure everyone today is gonna want y'all's input on the set five meta. And yeah, that's pretty much how I want to start off this podcast. What are your guys' thoughts on the set five? It's been a month since the post Bucky ban, and what are y'all thoughts on just the meta compared to the last set? And are you guys having fun this meta? I'll let Jonathan start that off.
Um, I'm probably not the best person to ask for this one because I was mostly just practicing for Toronto, so I didn't touch set five at all. Like I haven't even opened a pack yet. Um, but in the small amount of testing that I did do, um, I think that Blue Steel still has a place. It's always hard at the beginning of each format to find the right ways to attack the meta with Blue Steel, since it's never been like a top meta deck contender. Like we don't do stuff that is strong enough independently of other people's game plans, but we just try our best to use the toolbox tools that we have in Blue and Steel to punish other people's game plans. So I think it'll take some time for the meta to develop, like to solidify, so that we can actually um, get the most information in order to counteract like these top meta decks, which is Amber Steel, Ruby Sapphire, and Ruby Amethyst. But I think that we're getting pretty close.
Yeah, I agree. I agree on that take. Before we get into details on each of your responses, I guess we'll just let everyone go off first, and then we'll go back to that. Sky, what are your thoughts?
Yes, I think starting off, I think it's kind of important once a new set comes out to look at the previous set and look at like what was the top decks and why were we playing Blue Steel. So last set, of course, I think I'll mainly talk about the not Toronto meta where Bucky was a thing. So Bucky ended up being, I think, like 30% meta share. It ended up taking like the top spot as like Bucky, then red purple, then probably red blue. So of course our matchup against Bucky was fantastic. It was kind of like when we hit this in a DLC, it should be probably one of the highest matchups where you can get a 2-0. So it was kind of almost taking a free one if you got one, which at Texas was 30%. So you had a lot of good odds to hit those easy 2-0s, which was very nice. And then the other decks, a lot of people thought red purple was a terrible matchup. I didn't think it was bad at all. I thought it was 50-50 at worst. I definitely had a positive matchup when I played it in the challenges in the store championships. But I played no wheel, so I think that was a little bit different than wheel version. You did plays like Dime on 7 plus Aerial on 6, activate Dime to get 5 against red purple, and they have obviously no way to remove Dime. that was a huge way I think I took advantage of the matchup that kind of could race castle stuff people, force them to be prep, and then you get some turns after if you drop another aerial or like a Tamatoa, you're like on a 2-turn clock still. That matchup was pretty good. That's a matchup that will probably stay the same into set 5. Red Blue is probably your worst matchup last set, I'd say. It was either that or Steel Song, but Steel Song is kind of just the same as it's always been. It's just if they really high roll, it's tough to get out of a spot. If you can't drop a Cogsworth before they, have a Zeus for your 5 drop, then it's probably going to be rough for your 6 drop, your tank or something like that. So, but I think overall, Red Blue is probably the worst matchup, and it probably still is. So I think going forward, the main thing is we lost Green Steel being like the number 1 deck. So we lost our freebie matchups, which is bad, but I still think Green Steel has some interesting things, and I think it has a chance to step up now that Red Blue is kind of come into dominance. Stuff like Curse Merfolk and Flynn might be able to sneak under the nose of Red Blue. I haven't tested it too much, but some people seem to think aggro has a very favorable matchup into Red Blue. So we'll see if it kind of comes back going to Vegas. But yes, we lost our Green Steel matchup. After that, I think Red Purple is mainly the same. We got Cusco. I'm only running 1 currently in No Wheel, so it's not a huge thing. But I think if they commit to a castle play and you have a Cusco, you probably just win that game if you hit a decent curve out. So I think that matchup, if anything, got better this set. We'll see how much Red Purple gets played this meta, but Red Blue is still probably your toughest matchup. They got stuff like Visions, Vision of the Future, which kind of sucks because I still think No Wheel is probably the best way to play that matchup. Kind of just hope they don't hit crazy amounts of popsicles and Flabbershims. Kind of run a little bit low on resources and have to like Hail Mary a Tamatoa, and if you remove that, you win. But now they can just play Vision, and they have a lot better odds at finding more card draw. That matchup's probably a little bit tougher. And then, of course, Steel Song got some new tools as well to make it probably a little bit worse matchup. Stuff like Prince Naveen, stuff to just kind of blow up even more and hit the jackpot if you're rolling hot in Steel Song. So I think those 2 matchups got a little bit worse, but other than that, yeah, pretty much the same.
Okay, and that's like really well put. A lot of information in there, but it pretty much summarizes and like with your experience in the deck, that pretty much shows on how you view the deck. Before we get into Vegas' response, just to like I guess recap on both of y'all's answers. So Jonathan, I know you said you haven't had too much time with Set 5, but how you said Sapphire Steel just always been an explosive deck, the best toolbox deck in the game, and we have a couple of more tools in our box to fight the matchups. And I know how you said that it still looks promising and that we can fight pretty much the meta. And then Sky, back to your point, you pretty much basically said every deck got better, which increases your chances against Blue Steel. Obviously, Red Purple being a little bit more easier now, maybe with Pete. But overall, I guess to say Blue Steel is probably in the same spot as it was last set, just being the anti-meta deck. Would y'all agree on that take?
Yeah, I think it's safe to say it's kind of like the all around. You still scoop up some of that aggro that might sneak in more that Red Blue's playing, but yeah, you kind of are the all around 50-50 in most matchups if you like add it up, I guess.
Okay, makes sense. Vegas. So what do you feel on the set 5? How you feel about set 5 compared to last set?
Yeah, I haven't got nearly as much testing in as I wish I could, just because it's a busy working season. But I'd agree that we're still in a fine spot. The base game plan of Blue Steel is always strong, you know. Speaking towards the meta, to Sky's point, at Fort Worth, 6 out of my 9 matches in the Swiss were Green Steel. So I got like a sweet ride in. Losing that is kind of rough, but I think Red Blue is probably the worst for us. They've gotten incredibly consistent with like Visions and Tipo and stuff like that. And I think they're running like 8 2-count ramp now. So they're just super consistent. So it's going to be rough to try and hope they just brick. It's going to be rougher back for that to happen. But yeah, generally I think we're still fine.
All right, so yeah, I mean I agree too. I think Blue Steel is still fine. Obviously, with Pixelborn being gone, and a lot of it is just being webcam play. I think a lot of people are expecting other players to share their list and talk about how they feel with Sapphire Steel in the meta, and how Sapphire Steel always been one of the hardest decks to pilot. I could understand why some people might stray away from it and play something, a little bit more easier like red blue because of how more explosive it is. But I think with all the information that you guys said, like, yeah, I think Sapphire Steel is still in the same spot as it was. And if the blind mulligan is on lock and your list is on lock, and if you're confident enough with it, I think it can still perform. Not going to be easy, right? With all the matchups, but I think overall it's still a deck that's like worth being a contender. Definitely not top three, but it's not supposed to be top three, right? It's just always supposed to be that anti-meta deck that you play the correct lines and you're able to just steal wins from your opponents, and I definitely think Sapphire Steel is still a good pick for DLC Vegas, which we'll get into right now. But like you have to be like confident with the deck. If you're not confident with the deck and don't understand the meta, it's definitely not a good pick for like DLC Vegas for sure.
Agreed.
Speaking of DLC Vegas, I know myself and Jonathan are going to Vegas. BadVegas, are you going to Vegas as well or no?
I don't know yet. I have to request the Friday off from work, and I won't know until the week before. So
All
we'll
right,
see.
fingers
I have a
crossed.
ticket,
Fingers crossed.
but-
I know, unfortunately, Sky, you won't be attending this one. I know you'll be going to Seattle. But if for those,
Unfortunately, we have tickets for Vegas, but yeah, got tickets for Seattle, so should
yeah,
be good
dope.
there.
So for the people who are going to Vegas, 2000 player tournament, it's literally in 2 weeks, in like 12 days. Some people are leaving Wednesday, Thursday, so 10 to 12 days from now. What do you all have to say to the players who are their last hope is blue steel before they switch decks? DLC Vegas is in 2 weeks from now. It's the second to last event to qualify for the national championship, which I know, Sky, you and Vegas already have your invites, so congrats to y'all. But players like me and Jonathan who still need their invites, what are your thoughts on players who want to use Sapphire Steel, and not only that, but your predictions on the Vegas format? I'll let Sky answer this one first, and then we can go on from there.
Yes, I think you can kind of generally answer this, and I think most people that have played card games for a while would say the same thing: is if you've been playing the same deck for 3 sets and it's still close to the top, don't like abort ship the last week and get panicked, because especially if you don't have that much experience in bigger events, because there is more pressure there. Like if you sit down for the first day and it's like one of your first big events, it's gonna feel different for sure. So like you're gonna want that muscle memory. You're gonna want to have those mulligans locked down, because some games you'll look at your hand and be like, why did I mulligan that? Like that screws up my curve completely, because you're just not quite as comfortable with playing the deck. So I'd say most of the time just stick with what you're comfortable with. If it's close to the top, if it's 1 to 3% win rate difference, like it's probably not gonna, your competency of that deck is probably going to outweigh like some kind of meta call that you're trying to make, because you can always still get variance in matchups. You might not hit what you're trying to tech for by switching decks. So I'd say most of the time switch. That being said, though, don't be afraid to give up a deck if you really have tested it and feel like you're doing what the deck wants to do, and it's just not doing the work that it needs to beat what decks, like other decks' average lines, because that's the worst thing you can do is lose less. Pick a deck that just loses less if they have average draws and they curve out, which I don't think Blue Steel is at all with this set. But so yeah, I'd say if you're comfortable with it, stick with it. If say like you've played Blue Steel and then Red Blue, a lot of people like to play those two decks kind of interchangeably. And you think Red Blue is better for the meta, then go for it. But if you say, okay, I think people are going to start playing some aggro stuff because Red Blue's kind of running away with the meta, you might want to just stick with Blue Steel and try to hit some aggro stuff. So I'd say you can go either way, but if you don't have any other comfort pick, just stick with Blue Steel.
Well put. That's well put. Jonathan, thoughts?
I think I think I agree with what Sky was saying. Is like, on decks that you're really comfortable with, you just don't want to like throw away that and throw away all those reps that you have with specific lines, and just like Especially, I guess you have to think about also more than just like what are the top 3 decks, but like what people are going to bring to try to punish those. And so it's like not just punishing the top 3 decks, but punishing what people will bring to punish those decks. So it's like you have to get the best of both worlds, because if you just like tech for completely the top 3, you'll probably be in a good spot. But Blue Steel's in a kind of in a spot where you have a low to the ground curve. You can like um, you have pretty good board control, and against the aggro that people would bring, I think we would be pretty favored into those matchups.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, I agree with that. Mr. Bad Vegas, your thoughts on DLC Vegas and people who are contemplating on taking Sapphire Steel?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say that I get it. My initial testing felt pretty bad, but don't just don't just get scared because of that and run away from it. Like, if you've been playing it that long, it makes way more sense to stick with the comfort than try and switch. Um, as for like the meta, I assume the majority you'll see will be like Amber Steel and Red Blue.
Mm-hmm.
But then, I mean, there's still plenty of Red Purple around too, so it's kind of a wild card. I think it's still unknown, even a couple weeks away, what we'll see a lot of.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
Shifting.
Yeah, I think what going back to y'all's points, like if you've been playing Sapphire Steel for a hot minute, and I think the main thing is practice, right? Is how much you're actually practicing and how much you're actually studying the meta. If you're not doing that, then I could see how Sapphire Steel looks scary, but that should come with you playing the deck. Like if you are a player who's been using the deck for X amount of time, then you should know, right? Like this deck isn't just I'm just gonna play it and then not keep up with anything. Like it's a deck where you need to study the meta, understand your lines of play, understand the blind mulligans, especially in the best of 2 format. Because if it was a best of 3 format, I think everyone would be more inclined to play Sapphire Steel and wouldn't be losing their hopes. But in the best of 2, I can see how it's scary. It's all about practice, right? Just again practicing the deck. Again, it's 2 weeks away. It's really hard to justify switching over a deck only if, like how Sky said, you switched over to red blue, how it's a little bit similar, or you've been playing a deck, your second deck. But if you're already on to blue steel, I say just stick with it. 12 days away, and assuming that people don't work or aren't busy, it's not really that much time to like practice more. So, me personally, I think I'm just gonna stick with blue steel and run with it. It's if I don't perform well, maybe we'll see for Seattle changing it up. But I think right now, with there not being a meta, right, and everyone's going in there blind, you're just gonna have to skill gap your opponents, right? Skill gap your opponents and lock down the matches. But I think DLC Vegas will be super awesome to see like all the varieties of decks. I guess our next topic will be talking about that a little bit more. The top 3 decks, which are red, blue, amber, steel, and red, purple. Like any TCG, rock, paper, scissors format. But to go a little bit more specific and not just say, oh, well, this beats that, this beats this. Let's talk about more like what people are actually gonna play compared to the last sets where we've seen red, purple be the number one represented deck. Red Purple, compared to all these new lists, looks like they're not really playing anything set 5. Maybe a new location card, maybe the Elsa, but for the most part, it's the same thing. What are you guys' thoughts on Red Purple? Not, I mean, I don't think it's gonna be the number one deck anymore. It might be still be represented a lot just because it's very budget friendly and a lot of people can just stick to the same deck compared to last set. But if you're looking at red, blue, amber, steel, what are y'all's predictions on Vegas and how people are just gonna react to the meta? I'll let Vegas start off with that one first.
I think Red Purple is in a fairly good spot going into Vegas, honestly. Like, they've generally been kind of 50-50 with Amber Steel. Some of their newer additions might give them a little bit of a benefit there, but that seems like a matchup that you can kind of just skill diff. And they've always been like pretty good into red blue, especially if they keep Flynn's in. I don't see a reason why you should be scared to take red purple if you're a red purple player.
We'll put. Jonathan, thoughts?
Alright, what was the question?
So pretty much, what are your thoughts on like red purple probably won't be the number one represented deck, and how you feel about the rock paper scissors meta going into Vegas?
Sure. I think that red purple is still probably still the most consistent deck. That's a big reason why people bring it to big events is because you're not going to break and you're not going to ever have an unplayable game where you're like on Amber Steel and you draw like five on ink and or like no characters or like no songs. Like it's a very consistent deck, and I think people will still feel very comfortable bringing it. And like Vegas said, like the matchups are pretty good for red purple right now. I went at the 10K. I was talking with Lucas Serrano, and he was saying how he feels very very comfortable into Amber Steel, and he's like he wants to play all the Amber Steel if he could, and in the few rounds that he did play blue red, he actually won against them. So like I don't see why there's any reason to not bring red purple. It's a good pick still.
Yeah, I agree with you. One of the most consistent decks for sure. Sky, your thoughts?
Yeah, kind of interesting. So, like, kind of going off of what Jonathan was saying about the Amber Steel matchup, I kind of have an opposite opinion, honestly. So, like, I think in previous sets, the way Amber Steel got around the red purple matchup, which was typically pretty bad just because of B prep and they had to commit all the way to the board because they went heavy into flutes or even sometimes flutes and pride lands. This set's a little bit different because you have Pete, so like almost everybody is probably running for Pete and Amber Steel at least for now.
Yeah,
So
for
being able
sure.
to shut out B prep is kind of massive. I actually do think that once people figure out that matchup, the four Pete's will swing it pretty heavily in the favor of Amber Steel. And also, you get something like Naveen. So, like, you can just flood the board with so much lore and play one Pete. And if it just lives for one turn, you just win. And even if, like, if you get to a point, especially going first, you can just pretty much checkmate them if you get a second Pete. Because you have, like, say you wheel into another wheel and then you find another Pete after that. So if you can chain stuff like that, there's almost nothing red purple can do. Like, people say, oh, like if they're playing like Daisy Duck, maybe Fox is good in that matchup because it can just destroy Daisy Duck. But most people aren't even playing Daisy right now, and I think the main reason is because stuff like Little Sisu and Red Blue kind of negates the aggro advantage you get from that, and also Big Sisu just scoops it up as well. So if you don't have to play kind of greedy with like Daisy and stuff, like you don't really need to. So like if I think the current version that with like 4 Pete's honestly has an advantage against red purple. Um, red blue though is a different thing because they play Sisu, and red purple can play Sisu, but they don't have ice blocks, so they're not going to be doing like full clears. So I think overall red purple is in a little bit of a worse spot than people think, and I think maybe some of the success that it's seeing right now is just the best players are taking it to some of the earliest tournaments, and they're comfortable with playing it into a blind meta. So they're still seeing some success, but yeah, I think as time goes on, that matchup will get worse and worse for red purple.
I can see that.
I have a small response to that. I think that the list that they were running was heavy on 1-3s, and they were at least Luca's list. He was like, I think he had like 5 or 6 1-3s, and he just didn't play turn box fallers or broom at all. And I think his game plan was to just play 1-3. It's like surprisingly hard for Amber Steel to remove a 1-3, and it's kind of like unthreatening. But then they will tap their singers, and then red purple will just play like crap and just smack in. And like I guess they're fighting more for the board now instead of just um like assuming and taking it for granted that they're going to be able to be prep. Also the Elsas are huge, tapping singers. Like once if Amber Steel doesn't get the ball rolling, they're gonna lose probably. But I guess like the 1-3s and the crabs. Sorry,
How many else is like red purple playing right now?
I think they were on 3 or 4. Yeah,
3 or 4. Wow. Okay.
I think at least Luca he was telling me how like he doesn't like Brawl anymore. So I think he was on 4
Wow,
Elsas
doesn't like
and
Brawl.
They're
0
gonna be the
Brawl.
new 2-5, right?
Yeah,
Yes,
two
it's
Luca?
five.
2-5. Yeah, so like I think that card is actually pretty good into Amber Steel. You can like tap the singers and like buffer with crab and like just like do a lot of damage to the board without needing B prep. And if you clear the singers in Amber Steel, it's so awkward for them. Like they're gonna be playing one thing a turn, you can bounce the Elsa, replay it, tap something again. So I don't know. I think if tech correctly, it's at least a 50-50. I'm not an expert on either deck, but from the way he was explaining it, it sounded like it made a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I think that definitely. I'll have to take a look at red purple and how they're building it, because I could see where they go much more 1-for-1, tit for tat, and kind of come out even or on top. So maybe it's a little bit better than I think. But honestly, I do still think that over time, Steel Song will kind of take over that matchup. Pete is just so crazy.
Yeah, I think going back to Jonathan's point on like how red purple can just adapt to the meta, it's just so crazy how a deck that is so predictable, like you literally know their lines of plays every turn and what they're gonna do, and yet you can still like just get screwed over by how, like it's just crazy, right? Like, and the fact that they don't need to add new cards to the deck. A lot of people who are just scared to try something new for Vegas are just gonna be like, I'm just gonna stick with red purple and ride with it. And with no Bucky being in the format, because I mean even in Toronto we saw like the increase of it and the chances of it winning. I guess to wrap up the DLC topic, real quick, I want to know y'all's predictions on what you think will win. So Sky, what do you think will win Vegas?
What do I think will win?
Yeah,
Oh,
this is just gonna be a little fun, you know. Just we'll go back to it and we'll see what will win.
So I guess the top contenders just on paper is probably Steel Song,
Steel
Red
Song.
Blue.
If you had to put
It's
your
tough to
money on
say,
it, though,
like-
if you had to put your money on it,
I had to put money on it. I'd probably say Red Blue.
red blue. All right, Jonathan.
Yeah,
Can't-
I think probably red blue too.
Yeah.
I don't know. Let's steal his answer. Or...
I know you were gonna say you'd win it, but you can't pick yourself. So
No.
red blue, okay.
Oh, you'd be
And
close.
Mr. Bad Vegas, your prediction?
I'm gonna throw a wild one out there. You ready?
All right, let me hear
I
green
think it's
purple.
gonna be green purple.
Yep, I knew it. I knew I seen your head green
Green
purple.
purple.
Interesting. Can you elaborate on that real quick? Elaborate on that green
Okay,
purple
like
real quick.
take this with a grain of salt because I don't know how that matchup is into Amber Steel, but some of the new lists coming out with green purple actually look pretty promising. I think.
Interesting. Interesting
I
take.
hope you're right. I hope I keep Red Blue in check. But
We do not want to see red blue win.
Have a song on turn 3, so
I probably predict probably like red purple would probably take the event just because red purple is just more consistent as everything. I think we all want deep down inside Sapphire Steel to finally win an event, and I believe it. I believe it. I know it's possible, but obviously on paper, if you had to put your money on it, I think everyone here picked a good guess.
I
So
think if it was going to happen, it was going to happen last tournament.
what
I
happened?
think a lot
last
more
night?
people are going just more people are playing Blue Steel in Texas than will be playing in Vegas because
Yeah.
a lot of diehard Blue Steel fans
For
have
sure.
locked in.
Yeah,
And then
100%.
a lot of people predicted the Green Steel last tournament was going to be huge, and nobody's predicting that now. So
All right, awesome. So now for this next topic relating to DLC Vegas, again, all three of you guys are very skilled players, and for the people going to Vegas, not so much about the meta now, but I kind of want to talk about like the mentality, right? Like behind the scenes. You're not talking about the deck, not talking about your mulligan, just overall behind the scenes on what it takes to actually compete at one of these events and actually be successful. So like all you guys here dominated your guys' performance when you all went, and I just want to like talk about that a little bit because I know a lot of people get discouraged. You know, maybe after their first event, not doing too good. A lot of people don't really. A lot of people put in the practice, but like when they get to the event, they kind of don't realize it's more than just practicing. It's your mentality. It's a 9-round event, so it's like what 8 to 10 hours depending on how the day goes. Um, Even like losing your first round, even like going 0-2, like that can feel really discouraging for a lot of people. So I want you guys to talk about your experience and the event that you guys performed the best in and your DLC. And I just want you to talk about like how you went in as a player and how your experience went out throughout the day. And like how do you keep that gas going onto like I'm gonna make day 2 like no matter what happens. I'll let Jonathan go ahead and go first, just because he had the most recent placing at the most recent event at Toronto.
Are we talking about preparation stage, like before the event, or like during the event?
I guess like a combination of both. Like how do you if someone tells you like Jonathan, like how do you do it? How can I make day two? What do I need to do? Like what do I need to do to be like you? What would you tell them?
Um, play a lot, I guess.
Play a lot, okay.
Like I think what I've realized is this is my first card game, so I'm
Oh,
not very
interesting. Wow,
experienced
this
in
guy's
this.
a prodigy.
Yeah. I'm not very experienced in this type of competition, and there's a lot of learning curve that I had to do. That was apart from just playing the game. Like at Texas, I didn't get enough sleep, and that had a really bad effect on my performance there. And like, yeah, it's just like a lot of things that you can consider. Like make sure you get enough rest, make sure you drink enough water. Just like you can go walk around, like in between rounds, go outside, take a breath. These are all things that help you a lot. Being confident as a player. Like I think I probably lost to Sarek in the top 64 just because he was more confident than I was. Um, like looking back at the
Interesting.
VOD, like he was saying like confidence is like 75% of the game, and I never really thought about that. But playing against all these really good players, you pick up on a lot of things along the way, and I guess we learn and adapt over time, and it's just like the matter of getting enough reps in, um, and you'll slowly improve and become better. Yeah, like it's a pretty guaranteed path if you don't give up on it, and if you're actually focused on um, the improvement aspect rather than when you're losing. Every loss is a chance to get better. So
I
unless you
really
just quit.
I really like what you said right there. Like it's a guaranteed path. Like if you put in the work, it doesn't matter like if you lose the first time, lose the second time. If you're putting in that work, like you're guaranteed to like just make it, right? You finished day one on your event in Toronto. Did you go 0-2 by any chance, or did you go like? What was your thought process when you lost a game that you wanted to win, or like how do you keep yourself like it doesn't matter I lost, like I'm gonna keep going? Do you just tell yourself like I'm gonna win it, or you just still believing in yourself to make it?
So you're talking about my top cut game.
Yeah, like pretty much like how unfortunately you did end up losing that game. How do you keep yourself from not going down this rabbit hole of like I should have done this, I should have done that, like because that could like hurt you as a player, right? Like you focus on the
Yeah.
past too much, like and some people might give up. How do you take that loss and turn it into like a W?
Um. Well, I think that. Well, the night beforehand, I was like, ugh, why does it have to be red blue? Like the like one of the like few red blues, it has to be a Sarek in my first round, and I was actually kind of panicky. I called Sky about it. I was like, Sky, you gotta help me out. Like he was helping me prepare against red blue for like 30 minutes to an hour. It was so helpful. But
That's what's
I
up.
guess
That's what's up.
just practicing like I needed to make sure beforehand like aside from just practicing against the deck red blue, I played a few games against my friend. And aside from that, I think that it's preparing your mindset that um, we are playing a card game, and in the end, um, losses are not completely up to our control. And
I
I was just
agree.
like, well, I believe that I did enough work, and I need to be satisfied with where I am as a player right now. I'm not the best player. I wouldn't even say I'm a good player. But um, going to that match beforehand, I was just saying to myself, no matter what happens, like if I win or lose, like it's okay. Like it would be very nice to win, and yeah, it would be really nice to win actually, because I would have got
It'd
my
be
Nats in
nice to
fight.
win. Yeah, yeah.
But at the same time, like if I lose, it's gonna be okay. Like
Everything's gonna be
it's
okay.
genuinely okay. Yeah, everything's gonna be okay. And you can always go again. You can always try again.
Yep. Very well
You
put.
can always. Yeah, you just need to pick yourself back up and just keep going at it. Unfortunately, I'm like same thing happened at the CCS 10K. I lost in the first round of the top cut, but like that one actually stung a lot because I was just like, oh, two events back to back. I just can't make it. But like having a good group of friends that supports you when you play, I think that is probably what is going to keep you like motivated. I couldn't have done it without my locals, without people who are like cheering me on. Like that's a big deal, and I encourage anyone who's like very competitive to like take a step back and maybe just like enjoy the game and be okay with whatever happens.
Very well put.
Don't
Very
beat
well
yourself
put.
up over it.
I
Couldn't have
agree.
done without Steven.
I agree with all those words completely. Mr. Vegas, you got a top 8 finished at DLC Fort Worth. You got knocked out, but I guess it didn't really matter too much, right? You got your invite, you got your Mickey, but maybe some people assume, right? Like, oh, he doesn't care. He got the Mickey. Why does he care that he lost? But maybe you wanted to win the whole thing, right? What are your thoughts on, like, not being discouraged and wanting to, like, how can you tell a player to keep their head up while they're playing their game? It doesn't matter if you lose once, you can, like, just keep trying again.
Yeah, I think my biggest tip is like, if you like, don't take losses too hard. Even if you lose, on some level you're improving as a player, right? Like, you're learning something from that game, or you're learning something from the games that you played. So um if you keep trying, like, you'll get there eventually. It is a game of variance on some point. um the My run at Fort Worth, I was like, I think it was round five, round 4 or 5, I got 2-0'd, and then the round after I got a draw. So I was like 4-1-2 after round 7. The only way I was gonna make it in was with 2-0s.
Spicy.
I
It was
remember that. I was there.
The comeback, the
yeah, yeah.
comeback.
It was a legendary run for
I had
sure.
Legendary
to.
run. So what do you
So
do?
like,
What
I
do you
mean,
do in that mentality? Where's your mind at? Like, just elaborate that real quick. Are you just like, if I make it, I make
just
it, or are you like on try hard mode now? Like, you're locked in.
oh, I was in tryhard mode, but I wasn't. I was like, I'm gonna make top cut. Like, there's
There you
no way this
go.
isn't happening.
I like it. I
I
like
was
it.
confident because my matchups were pretty good. Green steel and red purple both felt
Whew.
good at the time. But I don't know. I guess it's hard to put into words, because even if I didn't make it, I think I would have been okay.
I like that. I like that a lot. Even if I didn't
Jonathan
make
said,
it, it would have been okay. Nice.
yeah, like he said, I lost my train of thought.
Just I guess, like, even if you don't win, it's okay, right? Because you're just gonna keep on going and keep at it, and eventually you'll get there.
Yeah, just don't take it too. At the end of the day, we're
It's a
playing a
card
card
game.
game and we're
Yeah.
supposed to have fun.
Awesome. Well put. Mr. Sky. Mr. Sky got his top 16 finish at DLC Chicago, and then met him at Texas Fort Worth, and he was actually in it up until the last round, and unfortunately, he did finish that 1-1, if I'm not mistaken.
I started off 4-0, and then it was downhill from there. And my last round was, if I 2-0, I would have got through, but I got 0-2. I had the worst hands all day.
Oh,
But it
unfortunate.
happens.
It does happen, unfortunately. I guess a little combination of both your experiences. If you can just touch on real quick how you felt going into your top 16 and how that felt like as a loss. Did you not care, or you wanted to win the whole thing? And then going into Texas Fort Worth, how you already had your invite, so it wasn't too much pressure, but obviously you still wanted to make it and you still want to win. How does it feel being someone who already has your invite, but you're still showing up to these events because you want to get that Mickey, like you want to win? How do you keep yourself in the game?
I think for some people, it would take the pressure off for sure. I think a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people like really want an invite, and if they go to multiple events, they're just like, well, I have to get it now. I don't think that was super the case for me. I didn't feel like super relieved that I had my invite. I will say that like going into the event with the invite, um, you feel better about spending the money to travel to these events. I'd say. I
Mm-hmm.
think I made a tweet after I got top 16 that I was like, okay, well, at least this like rationalizes spending, some money to travel to these events and taking the time to do this, because I think sometimes it does feel bad if you're not performing well at an event. You're like, oh man, I took my whole, 3 day weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I spent all this money. I don't have much to show for it.
Oof,
Obviously,
yeah.
if you have a good time, that's one thing. But if you're trying to be a little bit more competitive, uh, it's always nice to have that kind of, hey, like I had a good time and I made some money off of it. So that's like probably the biggest benefit I would say for me is rationalizing booking other trips, feeling good about that going into those. Um, as far as how did I take the loss, I think the matchup was pretty 50-50, and he went first. Actually, I think he went first. So I knew it was going to be pretty tough going in, and I already got the invite. I felt pretty good about that. Of course, he went to Mickey, but in this event, it was top 4 for Mickey, so I would have still had to win multiple other rounds. So I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and give it everything I got, and if we come out on top, we come out on top. So going out, I got 2-0'd, but I didn't feel super bad about that at the time, but I went back and rewatched, and I noticed a big misplay that I made that would have let me win the first game, and would have given me an opportunity to go to game 3 then, and I would have gone first. And in that situation with those deck lists, I think if I would have went first, if as long as I didn't break, I would have had a really good shot to win. So it felt bad after seeing that, but it wasn't the most obvious misplay. It wasn't like something egregious, but it definitely, I think looking back, I should have done a different line. But yeah, and then of course, to add insult to injury, I looked ahead at what I would have played if I would have won that round, and I think it was green steel, and then if I would have won that round, it would have been another green deck. It was like green until the finals, pretty much. So like, and that said, you had a really good matchup against either green purple or green steel. So I was like, well, I might have just thrown away my one chance to win one of these, but at the end of the day, you have to move on from mistakes like that. So I'm probably not the best person to ask for like attitude stuff with that, because I definitely get hung up. Like,
okay, interesting. Yeah.
There's a quote. There's a scene in Moneyball where Billy Bean goes, "I don't get over these things ever," and that's kind of how I felt for like 3 weeks after that. Like, this will always be the one that got away, but you got to move on. So
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really awesome to see these perspectives, especially between the three of you, right? Like, I think it's okay to be mad, right? It's okay to be upset if you lost, right? As long as you don't hurt yourself over it too much, because going back to all you guys' points, right? Is at the end of the day, we're there to have, and going back to Sky's point first, which is something really important, is people forget that like you are investing time and you're investing money in going on to these trips. If you get hung over the fact of trying to win it, and if you don't win or you don't perform how you wanted to perform, the whole trip's gonna feel like pointless, right? You're gonna be upset over yourself, like I spent this money, traveled over here, didn't win anything. And I think that's what makes it worse. I personally enjoyed meeting people, hanging out with people, getting that experience with other players, taking pictures with people, like the friends I went along with. Like, if you're there to have a good time overall, I think that's going to help your chances of winning, because you're not just hung over the fact that, like, I got to win, but, like, you breathe. I'm here to have a good time. It's only, like, a 2-day, 3-day weekend. Like, make the best of it. And it's okay if you lose. It's okay if you lose, be mad, be upset, because that's what's going to help you become a better player. But the moment you start like getting angry over it, I feel like that's just going to go downhill. But overall, I really do like all your guys' advice on this subject, just because it's a 2,000 player tournament, 64 people. That's like what, 3%, 5% of the people who are going to make it. So like you have to be realistic when you go to these events, right? Like, you might not win, right? You might not win. You might not make it, and there's a lot of people who are hungry for that win. So you just have to remember, like, if you don't win, is it because you didn't practice hard enough? You didn't try hard enough? But at the end of the day, like how you guys said, it's a card game, right? We're there to have fun, have a good time. But if you're not taking account to your misplays or mistakes, and you're not trying to be a better player overall, I mean, I can see how you like one person might get upset and discouraged. So going on from that, just a few more minutes before we wrap this up. This one part of the podcast I want to get into is me personally. Again, I invited all you guys out more specifically just because how I'm a Sapphire Steel player, and all three of you guys are some very skilled Sapphire Steel players. I wanted this last few minutes to talk about a little bit more specifically on Sapphire Steel this meta, and I kind of want to dive in onto the whole just three hot takes real quick. I guess the first hot take was going to be, what are your guys' thoughts on Mickey versus Tipo? I know a lot of Sapphire Steel players before Vegas is coming up. Everyone's in scrambles trying to decide what to play. For example, Sky, you do have a lot of influence on the meta just because of how much known you are for Sapphire Steel. So when you show Mickey Mouse, a lot of people are going to drop Tipo and play Mickey Mouse, right? Jonathan and Vegas, just like you guys too, very skilled players. You have a lot of influence when you speak about certain things. So I just want to talk about that real quick about Tipo and Mickey and what your guys' thoughts on that. I'll let Sky go first on that.
I actually think that I finally won a lot of people over with Mickey, and there's a lot more people staying with that. If I think back to, I can't remember if it was set 2 or 3. It's probably both sets. But when I first kind of started playing the deck, everybody's like, "What are you doing playing Mickey? Like, it costs one more. Why not just one jump on two?" And I really, every time I was just like, you want a character on two, and then you're fine with taking three, and we don't have like strong three options. Like, you just much rather hold up something and play something on two. I think now a lot of people are actually seeing that. I see more and more Mickey, um, and I think people will kind of stay with that. I think Tipo is a little bit different because you're playing it for. It gets rid of an extra card, which is like, and the body is kind of negligible. A 1/2 is not doing a whole lot. So I think overall a lot of people will stick with Mickey, unless you brew something with you really want to ramp on two. Say you like brew a version where you play like Grandma Tala 4-drop and how far I'll go and like heavy Zeus or something, and you're just like, okay, I'm gonna run 6 or 7 2-drop ramps, or even you could run all 8 2-drop ramps and just guarantee that I'm gonna play a 4-drop on this turn and have that up to sing next turn, which I think is a fine way to build the deck. And I actually am kind of curious to see how that does this set. I always try that version like once per set to see if it's any better in the meta. But yeah, I think Mickey is here to stay with Quill. Just play 8 things that ramp on 3. I don't like splitting it at all, but
So you're a Mickey believer, correct?
I'm a huge Mickey.
And
Especially I played no wheel mostly, so, or at least most last set. So Mickey is much more versatile in that list than wheel. There's many times where you just would much rather go 2-drop Mickey into Flabbersham or something like that.
makes sense. So we got one Mickey believer. Bad Vegas, your thoughts on the Tipo Mickey?
I think the clear upside of Tipo is that it's inkable ramp, right? Like you can put in some other uninkables, like if you wanted more Zeus or whatever the case. Personally, I despise Tipo. I cannot stand Tipo.
Ironic.
I've tried it for so long and I
Started
just
off
cannot.
good.
Yeah, my biggest complaint is it feels so bad on the play. Like if you use Tipo on the play, you end up with, I think, 2 cards in hand by turn 5. Is that right?
Yeah, if you quill,
Then you
if
quill,
you're
then yeah.
quilling, if you quill, if you go double, like if you quill and go for 6 ink, then yeah. If you stay at 5, then you'll have
Yeah.
3 cards.
Just that extra card for me. It did not feel comfortable at all. So I'm still a Mickey believer. I'm on
Mickey
Sky's side.
believer. Okay, Mr. Jonathan, your thoughts?
When it first came out, I was like, I thought it was interesting, but after thinking more about it, I thought it was pretty bad. But now that Amber Steel's pretty big and doing Tipo allows you to do Tipo P Cogsworth, I feel like that's a line that could be worth looking into. But I also like agree, like the hand size is like pretty bad. Like I think if you're on the play and if you go just Smee Quill, then you have exactly enough cards. Like say you're against like Red Purple, you go Smee Quill, you have exactly enough cards to get like a Tinkerbell and a Wheel. But like people kind of ruins that, and also I really believe that like Smee is better than like a 3/3 is way 3/3 lore 2 is like way better than like a 1/2 that lures for 1. And against a lot of decks you want to be able to have some early pressure in terms of questing. But there's also the argument that you could play Smee on 2 and the Tipo on 3. And you can see as like the 1/3 is not too much different from 1/2. I think that the body of Mickey is really important into a lot of matchups, whether it's protection from like Tremaine effects against red purple, or if it's just Lauren gets red blue, or if it's swinging into aerial when you play grabby swords. But I think that there's a possibility he might be good, but for the majority of the testing I've done, I feel like Mickey is just better.
Mickey, interesting. So we got three Mickey believers. I'm still personally a Tipo believer. I think the card's still solid. Um, yeah, I just like the fact that you can ink a dead card and a dead uninkable in your hand, and the fact that we clear up those uninkable spots. We're allowed to play other uninkable cards that are pretty good. I could be wrong though. We still got 2 weeks to test. Is there a world where you could do two Tipo, two Mickey? I just want y'all to answer that real quick, or did you have to commit to the 4-4?
Well, I've tried that actually already. I don't think it's necessarily bad. It adds a little bit of versatility. There are some matchups like if you think about this card, it might be good to go like pop and then ramp on two into Flav right away because you don't really want to be playing early bodies against discard decks. Um, but I think my current list that I have in paper is like 3-1, just to allow like an extra aerial because I went back to aerial sometimes and just like for the unequal count, I think I'm at 16. So like I don't know how good it is yet. I haven't seen too much of a difference, but I think it's possibly viable. But like Sky was saying, like I believe that it's way better to have more ramp on the same turn, especially since we are like a wheel deck, where we want to play the 5 drop on 4. So like just maximizing your chances to like we don't really care about ramping to 4 unless you're playing Flower Sham, but that is not great against most decks. It's okay on the play, but on the draw it's just far too slow. Like if you're getting aggroed out and you're playing Pop, Tipo, Flav, like you're probably gonna lose the game. Like hand size, like drawing cards that early doesn't do much, but just getting that like 5 drop down, whether it's Cogsworth or Chimpo, like that is way very very effective and has a large impact on like most matchups. So just like maximizing ramp on 3 and on 2. If you want to maximize ramp on 2, you should probably go Grammatala too.
Makes sense. Sky, I'm gonna assume you're onto the 4 just for Mickey's.
Yeah, I'll just say this quick. I'm a huge kind of believer in this mulligan in this game rewards like planning out your lines, your strongest lines, and if you can play like 7 to 8 copies of early drops, just go for that. Like if you can't, there has to be a lot of versatility value from like something like Tipo if you're gonna split. Well, some games I can ramp on 2 and some games I can ramp on 3. That consistency, like that you lose based on the rest of it, like you can build your deck around that curve flat line so strong if you go like 8. Okay, I want to ramp on 2 when I play 8 of those, and or you can if you want to ramp on 3, you build everything around your deck around that, and you just hit it every game. That's a lot to give up if you want to split. So I'm gonna say no to the splitting.
Makes sense. Vegas, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say most of the same. Like splitting specifically on different ink counts just feels awkward. Like if you're gonna split anything at all, you'd be like, you know, 2 Tipo, 2 Oja. At least that way, it's the same cost. Because then you're going, the lines you're going for are 2 split, and you're not gonna have it consistently enough.
Makes sense. All right, so pretty much either stick with the 4, either or stick with the 4-4, pretty much. And again, you guys do have a lot of influence on it. So you guys are saying for the Mickeys, for the people who are going to Vegas, you know, they're going to be inclined to start playing Mickey now. Not saying that, hey, it's your guys' fault, just in case Arian goes to Mickey and then, oh, it's not working. But that's what comes with it, right? You know, you guys are skilled players, so people are listening to you guys' input, and it all makes sense what you guys are saying. So if you are going to play Tipo or Mickey, now you have to start deciding on what 4-4 you're going to play. The last question I wanted to start to finish off this podcast, again to wrap up the Sapphire Steel conversation is, each of you guys, if you can just in quick summary, maybe a sentence or two, reply on how a Sapphire Steel player can beat red, purple, red, blue, or amber steel. So like in a sentence or 2 sentences, and your thoughts on that. So for example, I'll start off first. So if someone were to tell me, you know, going to Vegas, hey, I want to beat these decks. How can I beat these decks? I would say, for example, against red, blue, the dime package is important. So you really want to focus either Ariel or Tamatoa with the Pete, just because, you know, dime is how you win that matchup. And if they have Cusco, they have Cusco. But unfortunately, there's nothing else you can do about that. And you have to know how to manage your resources in that matchup. Against red purple with Pete now, we can just go super wide and drop Pete, not get be prepared, and now you can fight the locations, contest the board, and your dime is still untouchable. And then against Amber Steel, again, with Pete, we have Pete now that shuts down their songs. We have Cogsworth to fight the board with. Daisy Duck is annoying, but if you have early cards like Captain Hooks, me, you should be able to fight the board. But overall, it's just, Pete and Cogs. Sky, if you want to start that off real quick, just, if someone came up to you, Sky, I'm running Sapphire Steel. How do I beat red, blue, red, purple, Amber Steel? What do I do?
Well, I'll start with the easiest one. Red, purple. Just do what you want to do. You always do what you want to do with blue steel. So always hit your ramp, play your normal game plan, and then hit a Cusco when they commit to a castle, and you win. Other big play with that is it's the one color we can't remove dime. So play dime on 7, play aerial on 8, activate dime for 5, and then they have to be prepped like an aerial. That's the strongest thing you can do. You can't do it against red blue, which I guess I'll go to next. But I think honestly, I'm kind of mainly talking about no wheel here. So I think a lot of times you still have to take the gamble of, okay, well, dime on 7, aerial on 8, activate, and if they have Cusco, they have it. It's kind of a rough matchup, so don't be afraid to do that. Abuse aerial and dime as much as you can in those matchups. Steel Song, just have them not high roll on you. That's my best advice, as always, since like set 2.
Yeah, pretty much.
If you can afford to play Cogsworth first to protect stuff like Tinkerbell, always do it. Like if you can afford to play safe, but know when you need to play a Tinkerbell on 4 if that's your only way out because they had 1, 2, 3, and you need them to just whiff on a Zeus for 1 turn. Or play Kronk. I've been playing 2 Kronk. I think that's one of the biggest techs that isn't a new card for me. Kronk doesn't die to Zeus. It has a resist +1, and it has the same effect as Tinkerbell. When it kills something, you can ping something for 2. That card has been great. It's even better if you can afford to play Cogsworth in the Kronk. It's super safe, so try that card out for Steel Song.
Well put, Mr. BadVegas.
I guess I'll just do it in reverse order. For Amber Steel, like I said, it might be too slow sometimes, but if you can get the cogs down before the Tink so it can live, I think the Tink Grab Your Swords is still going to be your best way to stabilize that and come back in the end, because eventually you'll just fill your board and outrace them. For red blue and red purple, I think the aerial Pete combo is just absolutely insane right now. Like if you can get that off, it's almost a free win. You be a little bit more use a little bit more thought on when you place dime against red blue because of the Cuscos, but don't just hold it forever because you're afraid of it. Sometimes they just have to have it.
Nice.
Oh, one more thing for red purple. I think people like running. Not that it's wrong, but people like running extra like location removal just for the safety. But you're better off combating castles by having board presence, because if you have the the hook, Smee, Tinkerbell, whatever, they're just not going to play the castle, and then you don't have to deal with it. So.
Makes sense. Jonathan?
Yeah, I'll start with red purple. Just I guess if you're on the wheel version, just get your 2-drop block flame, get your ramp, and then play singer, and then don't ever swing in to red purple before you wheel. If you get beaking, you lose the game. And also, like Vegas was saying, like you want the small weenie guys to be able to challenge the castle if they play it. Like if you swing in and trade in the characters, then suddenly you have no board anymore, and they're free to play castle, and you're gonna be screwed. Just play your 1, 2 quill singer wheel, and after you wheel, then you can dump the board pretty wide, and then you can just trade in your stuff now. They shouldn't get too much floor, so it's pretty easy to stabilize against that. Red blue, I would say like Smee is pretty important in that, and the same thing, Smee ramp, just like every matchup, pretty much. just you need to get to like crucial lore points, like maybe like 10 or 15, where you can really close out the game with like bells and dimes. Like 9 is a lot worse than 10 lore.
100%.
So just keeping in mind, yeah. And then for Amber Steel, just like trying to keep them slow enough. I guess you'll eventually with Cogsworth, you'll eventually have a board that's way wider than theirs is, and you'll just be like trying to answer their few guys that they play a turn. And eventually you'll just like 2 turn clock them with like 10 lore on the board. So you just need to like try to slow them down as much as possible. The Cogsworth is huge in that matchup. Making sure Tinkerbells don't die to Zeus right away.
Very well put. I think all three of you guys had some awesome advice, and I think people are going to be listening to that, replaying that in their head, rewatching it in the video, just on preparation for DLC Vegas. So I really do appreciate you guys. I think I'm speaking for the whole community on the advice that you're giving as far as the Sapphire Steel players, because these are the big questions, right? You know, these are the big questions people are going to be asking themselves, and you guys answered that pretty awesomely. I think that wraps up this first episode of the Select Few podcast. I do appreciate all three of you guys coming out tonight and being a part of this, hopefully, you know, historic moment. I do plan on doing more of these podcasts in the future, and I would love for you guys to, you know, be on the channel again. Just to close up, any shout outs that you guys want to give out? Start off with Sky.
Yeah, actually. For anybody that's been playing for a while and played in a lot of the Pixelborn tournaments, shout out to Zepha. I remember I forgot to shout him out a long time ago after I won, I think, the second pack tournament, and he was like my main playtest partner. So I'm shouting him out now, getting him back for that.
Everyone misses Zephyr.
Yeah, come
Shout
back,
out
Zeph.
Zepha.
I mean, if there's one he'll go to, it'd be Vegas. But
Awesome.
yeah, shout out to Zepha. Shout out to my other playtest partner, Steven, Jonathan Gargaroth. I don't think he has a Twitter, but he made day 2 in Toronto, but
Yeah.
he's still going
Awesome.
for the invite, so hope he gets it. Yeah, shout out to those guys.
Shout out to those guys. Mr. Vegas, any shout outs?
Shout out to Pavel.
Shout out to
Yeah,
Pavel.
shout out to
All the
Pavel.
homies love Pavel.
Shout out to
To
Pavel.
Pavel.
I mean, that's really it. My brother does a lot of testing for me, and then I have a group that helps out a lot. So shout out to them as well.
Shout out to them. Jonathan, any shout outs?
Shout out to Sky, I guess. Like he's the reason why.
Can you
Well,
shout
I know that
out
was
in this
coming. I
podcast?
knew that was coming.
he's the reason why I'm like why I've learned to play Blue Steel.
Awesome.
And shout out to all my testing partners, like who let me go over to their houses and play, like grind hours and hours against them. My girlfriend. That's pretty much it.
Awesome. Shout out to all those people who support you guys in your endeavors. I just want to shout out you guys. Shout out you guys for coming on to this podcast again. Shout out the 20 Lore Pro Discord. That's where a lot of this teching, a lot of the spices conversations happens. And shout out to anyone who's tuned in.